Evenki is an endangered language spoken in Russia and in China. It belongs to the Tungusic language group. This map shows the division of Evenki dialects. Glafira Vasilevich has shown that there are three main dialects: the northern, the southern, and the eastern. Besides that, Evenki has high dialect variation. As I have said, it is endangered. Most Evenkis are bilingual, and Evenki undergoes language shift to Russian and even Sakha. Eastern Evenki dialects are related to Sakha because Evenki live at the Sakha territory. Plural in Evenki has several markers. The most regular marker is L with the connective vowel I. And if the base ends with N, it is substituted by R. There are some additional plural markers such as sal, hal. It is also used with N stems, and its function can depend on the dialect. In the Polygus dialect, it denotes emphasized plurality, as in example 1, whereas in other dialects, such as Yerbogachon, Irkutsk Oblast, it is the northern dialect. It can be added to recent loanwords. The associative plural marker ya can also be used as the just plural marker. Several Eastern dialects have this marker with the pronoun hu, ni, whereas the Ayan Maya dialect has it with some kinship terms. A very important conclusion that plural isn't an obligatory marker in Evenki, and it doesn't form a grammatical category. To test this conclusion, we look at the numeral construction. Many authors of grammars mention that the noun and the numeral construction can be both plural and singular. This is shown in 2 verses 3. However, this distinction can be conditioned by dialect variation. So it's not clear enough in the grammar data. We conducted an experiment in Ust-Nyugzhe, it's an instant dialect, and we found that certain nouns can be used in both plural and singular. Such nouns are angani, year, or ahi, woman. Both plural and singular is okay. Also, different speakers use different patterns, which depends on the speaker's exposure to everyday use of Evenki. Those who live in the settlement and work don't use Evenki in their everyday speech, and they tend to use the plural form. Dur anganil, whereas those who live in the forest and nomadize use the singular form, angani. This data allow us to conclude that Evenki doesn't have the grammatical category plural because the plural marker is not obligatory. The set of Evenki mass nouns that we use was formed using the realities and the set of substance names in Evenki. For instance, there are several mass nouns for food, and especially for meat, and also for milk. And also physical substances such as blood were included. The problem with Evenki mass nouns is that they cannot be called plural mass nouns because they can be used in both singular and plural. Their singular use is demonstrated in examples 4 and 5. This is similar to the European pattern. When the plural marker is added to mass nouns, we can isolate sort of distributive and abundance interpretation. This is, however, frequent typologically, so it's not that interesting. For instance, when the plural marker is added to the base flour borduk, we can interpret it as bags of flour. This is the distributive interpretation, or as very much flour, the abundance interpretation. So Evenki also has simulative plurality. Here in 6, the conjunction tushonka, canned meat, and ukumni, milk, denote canned meat, milk, and other types of food. Evenki also has imprecise reference interpretation of plural. This is in case of geographical names which are not mass nouns. However, it is a non-additive plural interpretation. And we are left with some examples which cannot be reduced to the listed cases. So in 8, ul or meat with the plural marker doesn't denote that there is very much meat. It is the abundance interpretation. It doesn't denote that there are pieces of meat. This is the distributive interpretation, and it doesn't mean that there are different sorts of meat. And the same holds of 9 with the noun fat and 10.
We used several Evenki corpora to find out which mass nouns are used in singular forms and which are used in plural forms. In this slide and in the next slide, you can see several mass nouns and the numbers of their occurrences in the corpora in the singular form, which is the first figure, and the plural form. We actually focused on 2 groups of dialects, of 3, northern dialects and southern dialects, because unfortunately most corpora are focused on them and do not have enough data for eastern dialects. You can see that some nouns, such as dikte, berry, tend to be used in plural forms. Some, like oldo or ollo, fish, used in plural forms, but in singular forms too. Some, like ulle or ulde, meat, are used mostly in singular forms. Of course, there is not enough data to perform any statistical analysis. However, we can draw some conclusions. We can actually see that there must be some scale of plurality for mass nouns instead of some distinct border, like berry and fish are on the right end of the scale, whereas meat or resin are on the left end of the scale. However, there are some grammatical contexts which seem to endorse singular forms or plural forms. For example, in existential negation contexts, singular forms are mostly used, as in 11 or 12. 11, shekshaya achin, no blood. 12, oldo asin, no fish. In both contexts, the noun is used in its singular form. In 13, Hexa is in the predicative position. His face is all blood, deren ustan hexa. And it also endorses the singular form. In 14 and 15, on the contrary, plural forms are used, which is typical with nominal evaluation affixes. In 14, there is an attenuative marker con, and in 15, there is a mater, an intensifier. We can suppose that plural form is more marked than the singular form, and these nominal evaluation affixes require more markedness from the noun. To sum up, we can see that there is no distinct border between singular and plural forms for mass nouns in Evenki. On the contrary, there must be some scale of plurality, with some nouns tending to have more singular forms and others tending to have more plural forms. It is connected with the lack of the grammatical number category in Evenki. Perhaps some nouns could move from one end of the scale to the other. However, the Evenki language is now endangered, so the normal developments could have stopped, and so we do not see the end of this process for some nouns. There are also some grammatical contexts which endorse either singular or plural forms. For example, if nouns are used with nominal evaluation affixes such as an attenuative marker or an intensifier marker, plural is often used. On the contrary, in existential negation contexts and in predicative position, singular forms are used. How can this be explained? As regards nominal evaluation affixes, they must require marked nouns, and perhaps the plural form is more marked. Thank you for your attention. We will be pleased to hear your questions or comments.